Hey, everybody, I'm here with Andrew Tepper. He's a psychotherapist and he loves to be outdoors. It's weird that you're inside, Andrew, right?
It's true. I
Is
got a
it
plan behind me though.
is it hard for you to do therapy like in a building with a ceiling?
It has become difficult. Since COVID started, I've taken therapy outdoors and haven't looked back. And so I've gotten quite accustomed to being outside doing therapy. So yeah, it's a little weird to go back into the office. Yeah.
It's so cool. I mean, that's one of the things that really distinguishes you, from what I understand, is you do a lot of your work out in the environment when you're working with, I mean, you work with teenagers, you work with adults and families, but you're outdoors. You were telling me that you were walking 16 miles. Is that right? When was that?
I 16.7 miles yesterday. Yes. In New
So
York City.
wow, like and you were with clients or a client?
I was with clients. I was in Central Park. I was downtown, walking, talking, getting some food, getting a smoothie, continuing the walking. Yeah.
Wait, so the smoothie is part of the therapy?
Oh, of course. It
That's
definitely.
so like how does that work when because I would think, do you pay for the smoothie? Is it your
I,
treat?
I'd like to treat people. I think that's a part of it. And I think that gets to kind of if you zoom out, it's all about the experience and creating an experience for clients. I really like to create an experience in nature because there are just these natural physiological benefits of being in nature alone, which just enhances the therapy. But I believe in creating an experience for clients that feels dynamic, that feels engaging and not boring, and sometimes, dare I say, exhilarating.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think walking through New York City with you and having therapy would be really exciting. Maybe we'll do that.
Okay.
I would dig that, man.
I love
I
that.
I have a therapist I was mentioning before we started, and my therapist and we go for walks, but he sits, and then I do on my phone. I'll use the FaceTime app, and I go for it's like 4 miles for an hour because I keep about a 15-minute pace, and I finish. And no matter what I've shared that session, I feel great. Like
Love it.
it's a success. Like that's the thing. When you're moving and having therapy, you leave and something good has happened no matter what.
Yes. There's multiple things happening at once. There's the content that you're talking about, but there's also, there's the physiological effect of walking. There are the neurochemicals that are being released as the result of engaging in exercise. I want to share with you a quick story. The first time, this is early COVID, I started doing this work. I was up in the Catskills and I couldn't see a client in the office. And so I said, "Hey, do you want to come skiing with me?" And I made hot chocolate and we would talk on the chairlift, drink hot chocolate together and really get into stuff on the chairlift. But then we'd get off the chairlift and we would shred. We would just shred and I would give him prompts during the time that we both were skiing. I'd say, think about this, really engage in kind of like this particular issue that you're talking about. I want you to think about what you would say in response to yourself. And it
Yeah.
was 2 hours of just transformative work. And it was fun.
Yeah. I mean, that's wild. It's interesting too, because as you're thinking about that, as I was thinking about that, I was like, okay, well, like I'm hanging with Andrew, I'm having hot chocolate, I'm skiing. And with my therapist, one thing I try to do is make it clear, and I'm always very clear about this. I'm like, I know you're not my friend.
Right.
You're my therapist. I said, so, sometimes I ask him questions. Sometimes I just say, hey, I know everything's great in your life and it couldn't be any better. And I'm really happy to know that. All right, let's get started because he doesn't get to share anything. But how do you keep somebody from forming such a close relationship with you? Because there are those boundaries, but you're doing these things that friends do.
That's such an interesting, I could talk so much about this topic. I think my formative years were in an inpatient psychiatric hospital. I worked in a hospital for 15 years, and these are people in crisis, and you had to have really firm boundaries. So I've had all of these years of training and experience around just being really firm with your boundaries. And I think that foundation allowed me to kind of just flex where I felt like it was appropriate. And I think as I do the work, and as the more I continue to be a therapist, the more I realize there's an artfulness to it. And I think where the artfulness lies, one of the places where the artfulness lies is, what is your persona? And my persona as a therapist is like, I don't want to be that clinical person. I want to be like the cool older camp counselor
Right.
that you just want to talk to, or I want to be the cool your older brother's friend who came over for dinner and you just want to get to know. And I have found that for a certain segment of people, that persona really is effective.
Yeah. I think especially with teenagers, and I know you've had a lot of success helping teenagers work through anxiety and, other issues. Hey, why do you think so many teenagers and young people are so anxious in record numbers?
Boy, how much time you got? I think we live in a complicated world where we are very much aware of all of the complications and where we are overstimulated. And I'm not going to I won't go into how much I think that we all are addicted to our screens and our phones, but I think that's a big part of it. I think we spend a lot of time cultivating a persona online and not enough time like living life without our phones and untethered to social media and you know uh, everything else
Yeah.
online. So I think that's a part of it. I and I would say the next statement is speculative, but I think that we are not designed or equipped to handle the amount of information that we're taking in on a daily basis.
Yeah. Well, that's so interesting. And I think the idea of being outside, it's very much like camp, even if it's just for a couple hours or a half day or a day, or I know you do retreats as well,
Yes.
where you're disconnected from that and you really get to be present. Is that part of it?
100%. 100%. It's kind of eliminating a lot of the distractions in your life. It's also minimizing a lot of the stimuli that would overwhelm you or distract you. And it's creating this environment where you are more mindful, more present. And it's in that kind of environment where you can do some great work. It's also really funny. You called it camp, and amongst my staff and the people that work for me, we jokingly call it camp. I'm like, see you at camp next week.
I mean, because it's kind of that experience. I know that my kids have gone to camp and they they don't get to use their phones. And at first they'll kind of, fight a little bit, but then there's this relief. Um, it's an oasis. So there are many things I want to talk to you about, and I know we're probably going to have to make this a multi-part conversation because there's no way to cover it all. But what I really want is for people to leave with some prescriptive information to help them. And specifically, we are recording this at a time where students are going to be going away to college for the first time, many of them, many students returning to campus or going to high school after dealing with a couple years of COVID and dealing with the isolation and social and emotional challenges that came with that. So what I want to do is I want to be able to use this. So if a student who gets to college, or let's even go a step earlier, okay, a student is anticipating going to college and they're feeling really nervous, really big feelings, big
Mhm.
anxiety. And I know each individual is their own person, but when they start to feel that sense of panic and anxiety, I'm going to college. Okay, what's a conversation they can play in their mind? What's a tool they can use?
Ooh, love this. Okay, so I'm going to give you 3 concrete skills to utilize in that moment. The first thing is, don't avoid it and push it down. Don't distract yourself or numb out as a way to deal with that uncomfortable feeling. Name it. Name it with specificity. Text it to yourself, text it to a friend or a family member, talk to a family member. It doesn't need to be a 40-minute conversation, but just 4 sentences. And in the naming of it, it helps to shrink it a little bit from an emotional perspective. So name it specifically. That's the first thing.
Can you give me one example of how someone could actually name it and what that looks like?
Yeah, sure. So can I just create a hypothetical?
Absolutely.
So somebody's never been away from home. They're from the city. They got into school in the Midwest. They haven't met their roommates yet. They've got multiple roommates and they're nervous about leaving home and all of these uncertainties and unknowns. Will I get along with my roommates? Will I like where I'm going to school? Can I deal with things that are unfamiliar? And all of that would hypothetically culminate into an overwhelming feeling of maybe panic, dread, and anxiety. And I think stopping whatever you're doing and naming that and saying, wow, I'm having a lot of really difficult feelings around all of these uncertainties wrapped up in going to school. And it's making me feel nervous. It's making me feel like things are going to go bad. There's a lot of negative feelings around that. And there's some doom and gloom feelings around that.
Yes, that's great. So you name it. So now you've been able to label it as being nervous or doom and gloom, or so that's great. So someone can acknowledge this. So what's the next thing or another thing they can do?
Slow down your breathing.
Was I breathing fast?
Oh, no. Just in
sounds like you're telling me to slow. I get excited about this. Okay.
This is another tip. Yeah, you want to do one together?
Would love to.
Okay. So pick something to stare at and soften your gaze, or even close your eyes if you feel comfortable. And breathe in slowly through your nose for 2 seconds. Hold for 1, and then blow out with pursed lips like you're blowing out birthday candles. We're going to do that one more time, but in slow motion. So the whole thing over, but just slower. Breathe in through your nose. Hold, and now breathe out really slow out through your mouth.
Oh, that feels lighter. That actually feels good.
Right?
What's in that, man? What's in this air?
There's so many of these little tips and tricks and techniques that really play on our physiology and really get our brain and body working together to help us calm down.
So what happened when we did that?
We activated our parasympathetic nervous system. We activated a part of our nervous system that's designed to help us calm down.
And then how many sets of breaths would be adequate to be effective?
I always say my rule of thumb is 30 to 60 seconds in a quiet setting, but maybe you just need 3. It's the type of thing you kind of have to play around with. Right. I also encourage doing it in a quiet setting. Go to the excuse yourself and go to the bathroom, because that's always a place where you can find some peace and quiet.
Right. That's great. So breathing, it was funny because before we started this, I was thinking about substances and numbing out and just how common it is. And there's so many ways, if you're over 21 legally now in some states, to do lots of different things. And but seriously, the natural effect of breathing like that was just so powerful. And I was joking, like, what's in the air? It was like, it really had an impact.
Yes. It's amazing. There are lots of things like that really change our brain chemistry.
Yeah.
And make us feel good.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. So that was the second thing. And I know you said you had a couple more. So these are wonderful. And these can also be used, and I want to be clear, not just for someone who's going to school or starting something new, where they're feeling those big feelings. This is something you can do in the middle of class,
Yes.
or something you can do if you are going to have a really important conversation or life moment. You just stop and you can start to do these things that are going to help. And these are things that I wish everybody would learn and know and practice. But for whatever reason, schools, it's a whole other topic. This is the stuff that really makes a difference, I think, and allows us to do the other things. But
Totally agree.
okay, what's next?
So the next is a suggestion that is a little, it's one that's slightly controversial in that when I recommend it to people, they're like, no, wait, I'm not going to do that. And then they try it and like, wow, oh my gosh, that was great. At the end of your shower, turn the water cold, really cold for 10 seconds and keep on increasing the coldness. The more showers you take after that first cold one.
Yeah. And so it's in some, college dorms, that's going to be the beginning and the end of the shower because there's no hot water.
True.
Does that work too?
When you go camping, all you have is cold water shower.
Right.
So
cold water, I've seen a lot of cold water therapy. I've seen some viral videos where people jump into bathtubs that are filled with ice to cool down. So tell me, why does making that water cold at the end of the shower have an impact?
It's good for your immune system, and it releases endorphins, which is this feel-good neurochemical. And also, I have found, this is anecdotal, but I've found that when you just splash cold water on your forehead, it helps you to calm down. So it's similar to the breathing technique. If you're not into the breathing technique, you can splash cold water on your face, specifically your forehead, for 30 seconds, and it can help kind of smooth things out.
So the temperature change, because I understand also that's another therapy technique where you could grab a piece of ice or do something that's going to stimulate that abrupt change in sensory input.
Yes, something sensory, something exhilarating, something that kind of captivates all of your senses and your attention. It's a great way to calm down, but also distract yourself in a good way.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Did you say there was another? And I know you have so many.
Oh, I can keep going.
Let's just do one more.
One more. In regards, and this last suggestion is specifically tethered to the first suggestion, that I made, the name it with specificity, whatever's going on. Think about a person in your life that you look up to, or that you love, or that you trust. A wisdom figure, if you will, and imagine what they would say to you in response to you reporting your difficult emotional moment. What would they say to make you feel better? Think about what that statement would be, that response, and say it to yourself.
And should this be someone they know, or someone who maybe they've seen through social media, or could it be like a biblical figure? Or
it could be anyone and anything. It could be a fictional character from an anime series you love. It can be Brad Pitt. It can be anyone.
Right. That's a great way to change the self-talk.
Yeah.
And start a good conversation, a healthy conversation. So I know we're getting close to our time here. I have two more things that I wanted to make sure I addressed. So a student who is on campus, whether it's high school or college or even a new job, this is just students. I mean, these are techniques that we can all benefit from. So I know that you spend a lot of time in nature helping your clients, your patients, to share in an environment that is much more conducive to being comfortable, it sounds like. So a student who's on a campus and they're feeling those big feelings and they need to relieve some of these feelings in a healthy way, what is something they can do outdoors? If they want to go for a walk, if they want to do something like kind of a quick little a quick little relief. Can you offer something to a student who's going through that where they could use nature as part of their experience?
100%. Pick your favorite song or a song that really you're loving at that moment and go for a walk outside and listen to that song. And start maybe even curating a playlist and get outside and listen to that playlist. And then when that kind of becomes a habit, remove the music. Yeah.
And just be. I love that. And every campus has a place where it feels right. Yeah, I love to find that place. There's, whether it's by a little river, or if it's behind a residence hall, or even within a building or a structure, if it's too cold or you can't get out. So Bodhitherapy, that is the name of your practice, right? So Bodhitherapy, if someone wants to learn more about Bodhitherapy and you, how can they learn about what you do?
Check out our website. I think we have an amazing website, bodhitherapy.com, or they can reach out to me directly. They can DM me on social media, Bodhitherapy, or even email me. Is that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Tepper@bodhitherapy.com.
That sounds great. Well, I love this. Like, I love this. And is this called mindfulness? Like what you were teaching us, what would you label that?
Oh boy, that's such an interesting question. I think mindfulness is anything that really supremely gets us to be in the moment as much as possible. I think we were learning some tips and techniques to stay calm, to identify things with specificity, and to shift them in a positive direction. And that all of those actions can bring us into the moment, right?
Right.
If you're not doing anything else and you're just in the moment, just naming all the different things that you're feeling with specificity in the moment, you're practicing mindfulness.
That's wonderful. Well, I would love to do this again. I think offering some tips and some practical ways for students to just deal with all of the input would just be so powerful. So I'm going to do that again if you're open to this, because man, I want more, but I think we'll leave it here and we'll just put it to be continued. And I just have so much gratitude for you and what you do. And I want to thank you for being so generous with your time. This is Andrew Tepper, psychotherapist, founder of Bodhitherapy. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you so much, Harlan. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate you.